What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages? Joker back again once again, and today, people, what is this nonsense? 2 positive videos, mostly back to back, depending on when this comes out. Destiny fanboys are about to hurt themselves in confusion. Though, to be fair to them, the title, which is the only thing that they read, will be kinda sorta spicy because, well, that's the YouTube game. But yes! Just as anyone with brain functionality above the medulla oblongata could have predicted, a cavalcade of changes has been announced for Destiny 2 that will allegedly save the game and put it in a better place just in time to sell Lightfall, or to be released alongside and with Lightfall, depending on how pedantic you want to be. Oh, and I should probably note that some of these changes might already be live when you're watching this video, but not at time of recording. Time is a construct in which my neighbors are renovating, so yeah, this is gonna take longer than it should to get out. Also, if you hear loud banging, that's why. But before we get started, a word from our sponsor. NordVPN is back again once again with a fantastic deal. Aw snap, Clovis Bray is getting hacked and having all of his data overwritten. This wouldn't have happened if the quote-unquote smartest man in the Destiny universe had gone to nordvpn.com/buttjoker, where he could have gotten a 2-year plan at a huge discount, plus a bonus gift. But now Clovis Bray is trapped back on Europa and Rasputin has assumed direct control, thwarting his dreams of becoming a machine god. All because he didn't use a VPN to protect himself. Jokes and skits aside, you know what does amuse me? It is 2023, and Destiny is somehow, someway, through some Herculean leap in logic that us mere mortals will never be able to comprehend, a peer-to-peer game, and you know what that means. If somebody wants to boot you off your game, all they have to do is DDoS you by sending high volumes of data to your IP address to bring your network down. But with NordVPN, you can hide your IP address so that it can't be targeted so easily, and if a DDoS attempt does happen, it'll be absorbed by NordVPN's robust servers instead. So with NordVPN, you no longer have to worry about being on your last Trials of Osiris game and being booted off and having your entire network brought down by some cheater. Don't be like Clovis Bray and protect yourself today with NordVPN. But Joker, VPNs are expensive. Haha, did you not hear me already? Oh, contrarian commenter of contrarian comments? You can go to nordvpn.com/buttjoker to get a 2-year plan at a huge discount and a bonus gift. And the best part, it's all risk-free with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. With that, I would like to thank NordVPN for their continued sponsorship of the channel. And now, back to your not-so-regularly scheduled program. So, Bungie has made a lot of dumb choices over the last year. So much so that it always surprises me when people go, "But Joker, you're just being mean because Bungie did this, that, and the other. You need to wait and see. You're just so negative, blah, 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 blah." And then when the changes are reverted and Bungie's like, "Yeah, we screwed up," the fanboys are like, "But Joker, anyone could have seen that coming." If you saw it coming, why does this cycle always happen and work like clockwork? But I digress. Tooting on my own horn aside, there have been a lot of dumb changes over the last year, and let's be real, let's be honest, let's be real honest for a moment here. There's an entire developer interview going around talking about how Bungie largely caters to the 0.5 KD crowd. I mean, we already knew that, but something about hearing them say it is just so validating. More so when they're confused because it didn't work out. Like, no, who could have seen that coming? But that's a video for another time. Today, let's revel in the catharsis of Bungie tacitly admitting that they fucked up and repealing a lot of the bad changes. Rumble returns, catalysts are a-changin', exotic glaive goodness, and more. As we race towards Lightfall's release next month, we've got a few updates that we are excited to share. As a small preview, we're talking about red borders, dredge and gilding, Rumble's back, blue woes, year 3 exotic catalysts, and glaive exotic crafting. Let's dive in. So this part of the article starts off with a few announcements that I'm just not going to waste anybody's time on. How weapon crafting is changing at some nebulous point down the road, and how dredging will be easier to gild. Neat. But then we get to the first really great announcement here. Bye-bye blues at soft cap. It's happening! Starting with next week's patch, after you reach the soft cap, blue engrams will stop dropping in the world. Whenever that would have happened, and the equivalent amount of additional glimmer babbles will spray out instead. We're also adjusting gunsmith reputation by 25% to compensate for removing gunsmith reputation from dismantled gear. This is so fucking amazing. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Inventory inventory management in Destiny 2 can be such a pain in the ass. Blue's pushing out things that you wanted to keep in your postmaster because there's arbitrary limits on items that you can keep in your inventory because fuck you, that's why? Well, not anymore.
But Joker, you should just keep your eyes glued to Destiny Item Manager all the time and this wouldn't be a problem.
Or the game could just fix the problem. Sure, everybody could just use a third-party app all the time, but that's not good game design. Now is it? Next up, the rumbling, it's caught. Wait a minute. In response to player feedback, Bungie is bringing back Rumble as a permanent fixture to the Crucible screen. Yay! In what world did they think removing this was a good idea in the first place? Like, I get it. It might not seem like a lot of people play Rumble, but it was always a safe haven for people who didn't want to deal with skill-based matchmaking, or now with Iron Banner. I'm just glad they realized the stupidity of their ways and reverted the changes. Can I get a hallelujah? But Bungie moves on to talk about matchmaking. And the big takeaway from this wall of text is that they're trying to figure out a way to basically do away with freelance playlists, but have preferred matchmaking where people who aren't on teams aren't matched with teams. But if the population of the playlist is so bad that they need to match people with teams, it can do that as well. I think this is going to be healthy for individual playlists, but I do think it is going to be a polarizing choice for solo players who don't like the idea of ever having to match against a team. And I'm not going to sit here and say I don't respect the mentality, but if Bungie wants to stick to their skill-based matchmaking guns, they really can't dilute the player population into separate buckets like they have been. Now, of course, the real and elegant solution to all of this isn't a one-size-fits-all, round peg, square hole scenario. It's a series of preference options given to the players.
But Joker, if it's buried in a menu, no one will use it.
I have seen this argument so many times anytime I suggest preference options, and I'm like, one, are people really that dumb? Like, do we just assume the average Destiny player doesn't know how to do shit for fuck? And two, I know that Destiny caters to a younger audience, but did none of you play Halo 3 or Reach? But I digress. The post then goes on to another change that should be live. Let's chat about airborne effectiveness. We introduced the airborne effectiveness AE system in Season 17 to give us levers to balance weapon effectiveness while airborne in a consistent and comprehensive way. We did this in preparation for a sandbox that introduces more airborne gameplay options, particularly with the Strand subclass in Lightfall. Yes! I just love it when a class we don't have access to gets abilities and gameplay options nerfed into the ground for abilities and gameplay options that don't exist. And so you spend a year with a really shit game state because a subclass you're not using doesn't exist. And Bungie has stated that the Strand subclass is the in-air subclass, so basically, even if it was unintentional, which I don't believe for a single moment, this is a multi-billion-dollar corporation after all. They designed systems to make the default subclasses feel really bad for a year so they could sell the solution. I mean, of course, that's not why they say they did it. They say, end quote, "We had two primary reasons for this. It's important to balance the increasing number of airborne movement options against their combat effectiveness, as we don't want Destiny 2 to shift excessively towards airborne gameplay over time." Okay, so let me get this right. You're saying you don't want the game to evolve into something that requires a modicum of skill. Huh. And I'm not being disingenuous when I say that. Bungie goes on to say, in a game where most modes did not have skill-based matchmaking, players using airborne playstyles could be extremely oppressive. So best case scenario, they punish basic mechanical skill because they don't want their game to require any. Worst case scenario, they created an entire set of systems so they can make subclasses feel really, really bad and then sell you the solution. Either way, it seems to have not worked, or at least not been worth it, because the collective community outrage. Quote, "After observing a season, we made an update in each subsequent weapon balance update, while starting on a larger rework in Lightfall. We've been playtesting these changes for a while now and are confident that we can safely put them into the Season 19 mid-season balance update. Airborne effectiveness affects the following aspects of weapons. These affect both mouse and keyboard as well as controller unless otherwise noted. Auto-aim, aka bullet bend, corrects bullets towards the target within the auto-aim cone. Precision angle threshold, controls how far away you can be from a headshot headshot and still get a headshot instead of a body shot from auto-aim. Magnetism, aka reticle friction and adhesion, controller only. Slows down your reticle when it passes over a target. Accuracy, controls how much bullets spread out with repeated firing. Pellet shotguns only, controls the width of a shotgun spread pattern. With this update, you can expect a primary weapon with no investment, i.e. at the default AE stat of the weapon, to be as accurate, i.e. shoot just as straight, as a primary weapon with the Icarus mod equipped did before the introduction of AE. The auto-aim angle is also significantly improved, and the magnetism penalty has been eliminated. I think what we have all learned from this in-air accuracy fiasco is that if it wasn't for the game doing half the work for the player, this game would feel like ass. It's funny because it's true. All the shit talk aside, I am very happy and content that Bungie learned the error of their ways on this too, and have removed it at least on primary weapons. And keeping in with the theme of movement getting unfucked, we're gonna go ahead and skip ahead a little bit. Don't worry, we'll come back around and talk about weapon changes and ability changes, but all the penalties to shotgun sliding have been removed. Yay! Not that it really affected me because I would just shotgun and then shoulder charge, but hey, thank fucking God it's gone. Quote, in August 2021 with update 5.3.0, we added weapon penalties that affected the player while sliding. The goal of this change was to reduce the percentage of engagements that were effectively decided by sliding, especially when using a shotgun that instantly ended the fight from a significant range. Shotguns and other weapons have been tuned since then, and we've implemented skill-based matchmaking into the Crucible. So, we're removing the slide penalties in order to improve the feel and consistency of combat. I like how they basically admit that they throw in a bunch of RNG bullshit just to give bad players a chance, meaning they penalize good players for knowing how to play their game. What kind of ass backwards logic is that? Now we come to our favorite game, the game of buffs and nerfs. Weapon types. Submachine guns, SMGs, have long been heavily dependent on the range stat to be competitive. SMGs with high range stats easily outclass all other SMGs and low-range auto rifles and hand cannons. General, blah 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 blah. Nobody cares about the reasoning. What did they change? Increased damage and aim assist fall off start at 0 range by 30%. Adaptive SMGs lag behind lightweight SMGs in effectiveness, dealing more body shot damage but much less critical damage despite sharing the same rate of fire. To narrow this gap, we have increased their critical hit multiplier, which makes them feel more rewarding in skilled hands, and increased their lethality against certain resilience values. Increased critical hit multiplier from 1.44 to 1.5. So SMGs live in this weird space, in my opinion, alongside bows, sidearms, and grenade launchers. Basically anything that wasn't more or less part of Destiny 1's sandbox as a primary weapon.
But Joker, sidearms were in Destiny 1.
I said primary weapon. You think I'm being flippant with that? I would have had a million comments pointing it out had I not said that, even though I prefaced it with primary weapon. SMGs and sidearms eat hand cannons and ARs lunch all day, every day. Bows do the same thing to scout rifles, and in kind of a weird way, sniper rifles. Grenade launchers live in this weird place that, if they're not the best option, they're the worst option. And I think a lot of the issues that these weapons bring to the table stem from the fact that they're supposed to be in between archetypical weapons. So ideally, these weapons should have trade-offs, so they're not as good as the weapons that they're in between. However, people like these weapons, and they don't like it when these weapons feel bad, so what happens? They get buffed. But when these in-between weapons get buffed into being as good as the weapons they're supposed to be in between, well, then they become a problem. And that's what we're seeing now. This might sound weird to people, but I come from Halo, and this is exactly what happened to Halo's sandbox when more stuff got put in the sandbox that started to overlap the roles of other weapons. Next up, pulse rifles. Pulse rifles are getting some nerfs across the board. Reduced aim assist fall off start at 100 range by 10%. Reduced damage fall off start at 100 range by 5%. Increased recoil by 20% on mouse and keyboard only. The BXR Battler was too good, so its zoom was nerfed from 20 to 18. Sidearms are getting a range nerf because, well, they eat hand cannons lunch. Reduce the Season 18 aim assist fall off distance buff from 30% to 20%. Dead Messenger had its splash damage against players reduced by 35%. And Dead Man's Tale is out here showing us exactly why text mechanical weapons are awesome, but also a mistake. From Destiny 1 to Destiny 2, there's one thing that you can always be certain of. Exotic text mechanical weapons will need to be nerfed. So, they removed the damage penalty for 5 stacks of Cranial Spike, which hey, cool, nice, nailed it, awesome. However, the trade-off is fairly steep. Reduced hipfire and airborne aim assist cone angles by 25% on mouse and keyboard. Reduced hipfire cone angle bonus scaling from 20% to 5%. Reduced hipfire precision aim cone angle from 3 degrees to 0.8 degrees. Reduced hipfire auto aim falloff scaler from 1.5 to 1.1. Now look, I'm not saying that this weapon didn't need nerfed. By no stretch of the imagination am I saying that. I'm just amused by how much damage text mechanical weapons consistently cause the sandbox. Perks. Revoker, I haven't heard that name in years, is getting nerfed. It now triggers on 2 misses within 6 seconds, not 1. Citan's Ramparts. Who could have possibly foreseen that having a barricade that people could shoot through would be a problem? It's almost like half of this game's issues could be solved if, I don't know, somebody thought about it logically for 2 seconds. Well, now if you're wearing Citan's Ramparts, your barricade cooldown is increased by 70%. And your barricade now takes 25% more damage. On to abilities. Titan Barricade, Thruster, and Dodge all had their cooldowns increased by 20%, and the Touch of Thunder Storm Grenade had its secondary strike damage reduced from 40 to 30. Added a 0.24 delay between Grenade's initial strike on impact and the creation of the Roaming Storm. The Roaming Storm's travel speed now begins at 1.5 meters per second and ramps up to over 1.3. The Roaming Storm's travel speed now begins at 1.5 meters per second and ramps up over 1.3 seconds to a maximum of 3 meters per second. This was previously traveled by a flat 3.5 meters per second. The Roaming Storm's target search range now increases over 2 seconds after creation, rather than starting at full size. Now, I saw a lot of people talking about the nerfs to abilities like, oh no, 20% class ability nerf, how dare they, it's gonna ruin everything. But as we talked about in our mod video, Bungie is also introducing a series of mods to increase ability energy gains based on kills and different criteria, so I wonder if this just kind of balances itself out. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Remember to like, but only if you did. Subscribe for more. Feel free to donate to my Patreon if you're feeling particularly generous, and above all else, stay frosty.